Are we on? Good. Welcome to the Better Than Not podcast. Sometimes we get it right, sometimes we don't. But when we at least do something, we know it's almost always better than not. Hi there, and welcome to Better Than Not, the podcast that aims to capture shifting perspectives and thought-provoking ideas in conversation, based loosely on my series A Changing Frame of Reference, which you can read on the Substack app, and I hope you will. I also hope you'll subscribe to this podcast, Better Than Not, so you can see more like the guests I'm having today. I'm your host, Doug Gardam, and today I welcome back, and it's a pleasure to, film director Nicola Rose. Nicola, how are you?
Fine, thanks. And how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Nicola
Good to
comes
see
to us. Nicholas comes to us in a bit of a busy schedule for her. She has some big news to talk about today. She's the director of a film called Magnetosphere. If you haven't seen it, she'll talk about all that. She's also had previous credits in directing a film called Goodbye Petrushka, which you may have already seen. But with that, Nicola, you're also writing on Substack now, which I see, which is kind of exciting too. So not only is she a film director, she's multi-talented. She's have back a master. I think you're a master puppeteer, are you not?
No, not at all. I did puppetry professionally for about 6 or 7 years, but there are people who are virtuosic at that. There are people who do string marionettes and Muppet puppetry and all sorts of stuff. And I did little shows to entertain children, and it was and is a source of income. But I want to be very clear about that that's a skill that I have and had, but there are people who have mind-blowing skill in that field. And um,
That's
I
cool.
was lucky I got to do it for a long time.
No, that's very cool. But just kind of start off, you have a big announcement here today about your film. Can you describe what's kind of happening? Because it's very exciting.
Yes, Magnetosphere will release across all major streaming VOD platforms in Canada, the US, and I believe Mexico on July 22nd, which, as we're filming this, is a week from today. So, Tuesday, July 22nd, you will be able to see it on Amazon Prime, on Apple TV, on a bunch of others, basically anywhere that does streaming in North America.
That is very exciting. What an amazing deal you must have got. Like,
Our distributor is great, Freestyle Digital Media.
did you have, I'll say you probably had some idea because you talked about this a little bit in our exchange of information, but did you think it was going to be this big a release?
I don't know. I don't think I predicted anything I don't think I was thinking about it.
Oh, that's cool. It's
Yeah.
great when you can do that because it must be a little bit of surprise and certainly something that is I'll say a credit to you and your film.
Well, thank you. I don't know that I knew that it would get distribution necessarily. So I think I was,
Okay.
we had a few different offers ultimately, and the credit for that goes to our sales rep, Glenn Reynolds with Circus Road Films, who works out of the US. And I every film is pitched to it when sales reps are working on it. Every film is pitched to a whole bunch of different distributors, and some say yes, many say no. That was the case in our situation, and I'm sure it's the case in most situations, unless you have like major A-list stars headlining. And Freestyle. I want to take a moment to say I really appreciate distributors like Freestyle because they take a chance on films that do not necessarily have. Our film, for example, has well-known people in it. It has wonderful people in it. It has people who, in fact, were my first choice across the board, every single one to play the role they're playing. But we work within a system where the only people who matter in terms of press, in terms of PR, in terms of the trades picking up the info for an announcement, the only people, there's only about like 20 A-listers. I'm making up that number, but it is a very small number of people. So all credit is due to the distributors and the sales reps, and for that matter, the watchers. Most of all, the people who will watch films that don't necessarily have
Yes.
Scarlett Johansson or somebody. Um, Really, all credit is due to them, because indies could not. Indies can barely exist as it is. They can barely be made as it is. They can barely survive as it is. But when people are willing to watch something because they like the idea, they like the story, regardless of who is headlining, those are the people that keep indie films going, and we need those people.
Oh, it's amazing. Like, list like give some idea of some of the actors that you have playing, because you do have like I came to you via a gentleman named William C. Cole. He was the one that kind of introduced us. But you have a number of stars
Yeah,
in this film, right?
we do. And in Canada, people recognize that. In the US, less so, which is very unjust. But I will do everything I can to put this out there because it deserves to be. So, among our headliners, the people who are well known, they're all Canadian except for one.
Wow.
Colin Mochrie from Whose Line Is It Anyway? His wife Deborah McGrath from Little Musk on the Prairie. Patrick McKenna from The Red Green Show. He's somewhat known in there's a couple of these folks who are somewhat known in the States, but they would be known by, oh, I know that face from something.
Yes.
Whereas in Canada it'd be like, oh my God, how did you get that person?
Really?
The reaction is very different. The culture is very different. I think the priorities are very different. Anyway, Tara Strong, who's a world renowned voice actress, mainly. I think she's appeared on camera too in a number of things, but she does a voice in the movie. She's actually a major character in the movie. She's Canadian, but she's super well known in the US. But it's more her voice that's known.
Yes.
People know who she is, but it's more that her voice is known. And then possibly the best known person we have is Stephen He, who's the only non-Canadian in the
Okay.
film, I believe, who is Irish and Chinese, and who is best known as a YouTuber, a YouTube megastar, and TikTok. I think he
Hey,
has something like 10 million followers across these platforms. And even if people don't know his name, they know him as the guy who says the words emotional damage and plays
right
the
on.
Asian dad character. Yeah. He plays like a version of um, like this sort of every Asian parent character. And it is not the most flattering character. It is extremely funny. I think it resonates with a lot of people of Asian descent, and it's funny to people who are not. He manages to bridge that gap
Wow.
beautifully, and he's very funny, which is a shame in a way. Is not utilized in the movie. He's playing a character who is there to be completely sweet and sort of a dope, and he is very important. He is a catalyst for a lot of things in this movie, but just how funny and brilliant he is, we never really show. The script just doesn't. Although he does sing, which you never see him do on his YouTube, so
Oh,
that's kind of.
that's cool. It's
He's
interesting
not a
you
bad singer.
when you say that, because I wasn't thinking that Magnetosphere was like a comedy in that sense. And when you have Colin Mochrie on it, who of course, like you said, was hilarious, and Whose Line Is It Anyway? And apparently is a very funny person. So I kind of wondered, like, how did you keep like the scene with these funny people in the movie? How did you keep like it from not bursting into laughter? And like, was that a hard thing often, or was it just part of how you make the things work?
It was. The answer is yes and no, because yes, there are a lot. You'll see a lot of shots of me on set like this, which keeping from making any noise because people would do funny things, and
Ah,
you
okay.
know, if I make noise, I kill the day. That means less time for the next
Yes.
shot to be shot, for the next scene to be shot. So I know that they were doing funny things that I was trying to remain quiet for, and that's true for everybody behind the camera, for that matter, everybody in front of the camera. Um, they're very funny people. However, it is sort of ingrained in you when you direct things to not. It must be sort of the equivalent of when doctors are looking at
Right.
when doctors are looking at different body parts and so forth, and they feel nothing about anything. They feel
Uh-huh.
nothing weird because
Yeah.
it's just part of you have to just remain very, you have blinders on the whole time. All you are thinking about is, did I get what I wanted, and are we going to make our days? Which I guess not everybody knows what that means, make our days, but get finished in time. And it's two things. It's just the material satisfactory, what we got, and are we going to make the day? Are we going to finish in time?
Right.
Because very often you cannot go beyond a certain time, which on indie films is very stressful, very frightening, actually. You're limited.
And no doubt exhausting.
Yeah, after I think it was my third short film that I ever made, I remember sleeping for about 24 hours.
Wow.
And it's, there's not a lot of, I can't think of the word. Sometimes I drop a word. There's not a lot of pressure riding on you for short films, because chances are, I
Okay.
mean, yeah, there's pressure, but chances are it's either self-funded or crowd-funded or this or that. And it's not as though there's usually not like a union cracking some whip. There's not usually, um, the pressures are not the same,
Did you
but the
did
exhaustion.
did you find, like, in working this in developing this feature film, a more of a pressure? Like you say, like, because you're very much an artist and you're trying to put together what's in your head, like that picture. And now you've
Thank
got
you.
other pressures kind of now, like you said, we got to make the day, right? Like, did you
And you
find
have to
that
make
quite
the
a bit
best.
different to work, as far as, did it compromise some of your creativeness?
I hope it did not. That that's something that ultimately the audience will have to be the judge of. The
Yes. Yeah.
critics will have to be the judge of. I do not believe it did, because I know that, when I edited the film, and I'm going to put an asterisk there and come back to that in a minute.
Oh, okay.
Um, when I edited the film, which is ultimately when you have a chance to really assess properly what you did, I know that I was completely satisfied with everything that I got.
Oh,
Not to say that all of it was exactly what I thought I would get, but in all cases, I don't remember. I'll put it this way: there was no case in which I thought, "No, no, this is way no, this is
oh,
way off."
wow.
I mean, I knew on set that I was satisfied with what we had, because I didn't stop. I never stopped until I was satisfied with what we had, even when you have people breathing down your neck and saying you have 2 minutes, 3 minutes, which is usually the case. Um, I had been through this before on an even tinier feature film, this being already a tiny feature film. I had been through this before on a film so tiny that it was probably like 1/6 of the budget or 1/8 of the budget or something like that.
Okay.
And um, that was an interesting experience. It was less stressful, especially because we weren't on Magnetosphere working with a lot of minors. On Goodbye Petrushka, there were a couple minors, but they were like very minor, haha, characters who, they didn't have to shoot so many scenes. I think they had to shoot like 3 scenes. They had one day each, something like that. Whereas Magnetosphere, there's a minor in just about every scene.
Wow. That's a
It
lot.
is rare that, and they have very limited hours. Now, the thing I want to say about being an editor, because I, first of all, I'm trained as an editor. That is one of the things I'm trained
Oh,
as.
wow.
Now
Okay.
I'm going to. It's one of the skills that I owe it to, a good friend of mine named Brandon Ascari. Hi, Brandon, who lives
Shout
in
out
New
to Brandon.
Jersey. Yes, who lives in New Jersey, and who one day we were playing around with footage on a computer in his basement, and he said, "You want to learn how to edit?" And I was like, "Sure." And yeah, I guess. And he said, "Okay, here's how you edit." And he showed me the scene. It was of two guys fighting, which is relatively difficult thing to, like, a fist fight. Like,
Yes.
that's a hard thing to edit,
Yeah.
because you have to, each punch has to connect and each punch has to match and the angles have to, and he basically went like keystroke, keystroke, keystroke. Okay, now you do it. And I was sitting there like, hell do I? And somehow I figured out how to edit that, and I was like, oh, I see what we're doing. And I like to think that my skills developed with each subsequent project. I edited after that a lot of projects that were
Interesting.
not mine. Now, I say all of this. I say all of this not to talk about myself because I believe that I am, not some major editor. I believe I don't want to say I am an average editor, but I do the job. That is
Right.
what I do. I do the job well, I hope. Um, there is, I think, an unfair sort of attitude or backlash toward people who wear many hats
Oh, okay.
um, on their same film. And so I don't tend to lead by saying, it's impossible not to say writer director, but I don't tend to lead with, oh, I also edited. I put that as far down the credits as I could get away with. I said, could we put this, 17th or 18th on the list? I don't think you
Sure.
actually can, but
Right.
the reason I think this is extremely unfair, I think the movie The Room is probably what started all this backlash.
Really?
And for good reason if one has seen even clips from it. I have never seen the whole thing, but here you have this guy who quite undeservedly made himself director, producer, writer, star, editor, probably gaffer, probably
Yes.
key grip, probably God knows what, probably, animal wrangler, probably the animals that anyway, point being, it was so terribly done. It did, by the way, become a major cult classic and
Yes.
probably made his life amazing.
Yes.
So I really I have no business being critical. He probably you know, is a bazillionaire from this film. But I think I think what it was I think that is probably where the backlash came from toward people who wear multiple hats. And it is true that there are people who wear multiple hats that they should not be putting on. But I think, not to say something really obvious, but each project needs to be judged on its own merits. And if somebody is their own, I don't know, somebody wrote and also edited, or like produced and also edited, or so forth. Watch the film before you decide that means they were incompetent,
I think
because we've gone so far in that direction.
you said that earlier on, Nicola, is you don't know until you've seen the film. And it's like, if it works, then I guess it's okay, right? But it's like when you said The Room, though, I thought you were talking about Emma Donohue's book, The Room,
No,
that they made a film.
that's Room without the article.
This is
Yes,
this is
people
the
make that
one.
mistake.
This is the one that James Franco did, right? As a second, like he did a second updated movie to this about the guy that did the movie.
Yes, yes,
Yes,
yes,
okay,
disaster artist.
because it's
Yes.
it's very interesting. I'm glad you kind of brought up the editing because to me, as you know, like editing is sometimes can make the film, right? But what I was going to ask you was in my world, my background is kind of in the engineering world. We would design something on a computer, and then we would go and
Mhm.
build it in the shop, as an example. And I'd always say, like, you got to go and look at it in the shop because it's not the same as it is in the computer when you go to look at it, right? It's scale and all that. When you're having shot your film and now you go to edit that part because you're going to review it anyway, do you find that there's a bit of a difference that goes on?
Well, sure. Yeah, every time.
And do you find
Absolutely.
surprises and then some not so surprises?
Yes, both cases are true. Generally, if you've had the chance already to review all the footage, you're not going to find anything too surprising. We hope. Um, Occasionally, there will be something, and you think, "Really? Okay, how did that get in there?" And just a little mistake, usually, that just got overlooked because there are so many things having to be taken care of at any given moment. Usually, it's like a small mistake, and more often than not, it stays in because like nobody's going to know it was a mistake.
Right, right.
And in the bigger picture, it doesn't matter.
So we're talking a lot about your film. It's coming up in a very big release. It's very, very exciting. When we last talked, and what I've seen actually in some of your social media, is you're looking at stepping away from directing.
Hmm.
Is this changing that thought at all? Or are you just like kind of like, because obviously you write very well and it's a talent that you have.
Thank
This
you.
Does this shift things for you at all, or you just kind of going with where your heart kind of goes?
I think the latter is true. I could surprise myself if a project comes my way. I could decide to direct it. I could decide to write another movie. And then if that happened, I would probably try to figure out how to fund it to direct it. At the moment, I'm dealing with illness. And what that does is it limits what I can do a little bit, a big
Really?
bit. Yeah. And so uh, the outcome of that, who knows, but the ideal would be, so with writing, that doesn't require you to expend a lot of, you know the sort of the limit of the energy I can spend or expend right now is walking from my house to the gym, which is 15 minutes away, doing half an hour at the gym and then coming back, so it's limited. Yeah, but what that means is I have to kind of focus there, and I don't know. But I'm saying this in July of 2025, and 6 months down the line, it may be, hey, I'm good now. I hope so. Ask me then. But like basically, with the writing, you mentioned the Substack. So my
Yes.
Substack is Nicola Rose Directs. So yes,
Yes.
still in the present tense. At I hope not to change it to Nicola Rose Directed, but it's
Cool.
Nicola Rose Direct. Yeah, .substack.com. That's also my Instagram is Nicola Rose Directs. And what I, although you should follow Magnetosphere movie because that's more to the point.
Yes.
The other one is like, it could be stuff about my cat. He's very entertaining. But anyway, what I was going to say, he's also a big jerk, which is probably why I had that look on my face just now. Anyway, the Substack, what I'm trying to do there is I don't want to say trying, but my focus there is writing humor essays. I think if I hadn't okay, so here's how it went for me in 15 seconds. As a child, I wanted to be an actress.
Okay.
That weirdly did happen for me professionally for 7, 8 years, but as a puppeteer. There was a time I was making a decent and my full income from being a puppeteer. Then I quit because I simply fell out of love with it. I was good. It was good to go. The unexpected left turn is I became a director. And now I'm looking at not knowing what's going to happen with that, not knowing if Magnetosphere is it. We don't know. So uh, writing, that's something I would love to be able to continue. And if I can, that will be great news. And we hope that happens. And the Substack is where, anytime I can, I publish pieces that I don't want to say like I'm trying to be a humor writer because that indicates that I'm trying to be funny, and that way lies failure. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm just saying what comes out, and
Yes.
hoping that I'm not the only one laughing, basically. Like somebody asked on Substack this morning, not to me, but like generally it was like, do you write for yourself or other people? And my thought on that is you always write for yourself,
Yes.
but it's the same as with movies. Why would you do it if there's no audience? And some people, I don't mean to put words in his mouth, but my father, who is a professional cartoonist and has been for, since the dawn of time,
Wow.
probably, yeah. And so he probably would say, you always, I would do it no matter if there were nobody else in the world. That's great. That's the best attitude there probably is. I would not, because making other people laugh or react at the other end is what I was and am in it for.
True
So
enough.
with Magnetosphere, I
Interesting.
hope to connect with people who are neurodivergent, people, and just people who want to laugh.
Oh, that's interesting.
Entirely a comedy. It's not 100% a comedy, but it's largely a comedy, and actually more a comedy than I realized when I wrote it. But the thing is that I what I write is like inherently pretty silly, and evidently I can't stop that from seeping in.
True. Okay.
Um, and then I hired the funniest actors I know to, be part of it. So I, not necessarily as in Stephen He's case, not necessarily using them to their best effect. I wish I had, but Stephen is there to be, um, Maggie's the main character, the little girl, her first love. He's way too old for her. She's 13. She doesn't recognize any problem. He does. I will spoil it right now. Just to be clear, he recognizes there's a problem. She does not, obviously. And so, he's being used to dramatic effect, which hopefully fans of him as a comedian will be interested to see just how dramatic he can
Oh, for
be
sure.
in a scene that's tense and upsetting. Because all comedians can do that. Not all dramatic actors can be funny. All comedians can be sad and dramatic and tragic.
Yeah.
That's the rule.
When you say that, I can only think of the late Robin Williams. Like that to me is like he had some of the greatest dramatic roles ever, and he was one of the funniest men ever. And I think it's
Ever.
kind of
And
neat.
people were surprised. They're like, oh my God, he can do drama. It's like, what did
That's
you think?
and it was so real. I want to ask you a question about your father, because you would have grown up in a creative house. I'm thinking if your dad was. How do you think that gave you like an extra kind of support to do what you were going to do? Because a lot of times when I'm talking to people, especially in the entertainment world, I find almost second to none. They're all supported by their parents in the sense that they go ahead. It's not like you don't want to do that because you can't make a living at it. How was your experience of growing up with a creative father? Like that's kind of a neat
Yeah,
thing to.
and my mother too, who's she's a musician. She trained at Juilliard. They both did. He actually like went over from being a musician to he went. You know the old violist to cartoonist pipeline. It's very common. He yeah, he went sideways into being a cartoonist. The answer to your question
Yeah.
is not only was I supported, I don't think I realized until some embarrassingly late age that this was not what people did for work normally.
Well, how would you
Um,
how would you know differently if growing up in a household like that to me? Like you'd have been
I
I'm
noticed
just
other
thinking,
people had like boats and second houses, and I didn't put two and two together.
oh wow.
Like, I go to a friend's house and their dad would be a dentist, which I knew there were dentists. I went to them, but go to like a friend's house and they'd be like, "You want to go out on the boat and then we'll go to our beach house." It's like, yeah, sure. Hey, mom and dad, why don't we have it's like that, which we were very comfortable. It's not,
Yeah.
just to be clear, I did not grow up in, I was very, very lucky, but, um, you know, uh, being, being in the arts as a profession where if you're doing this professionally, you make what you make and you probably have a second job.
Right.
My dad was very lucky. He didn't actually have to have a second job. My mom, took time off from what she did to like raise kids and so forth. And, but she's a musician. Um, I have a couple other jobs from because, uh, what I've made in my whole life from filmmaking is not enough to, pay my rent for a year.
Right.
Maybe just about by now, but, 1 year's worth rent.
They must have been
Anyway,
like very pleased when you came out with like moving into the film director role and then actually I'll say directing a feature film, like even like first with Goodbye Petrushka, but then with Magnetosphere. Like that must have been something like special for them to be part of too,
I hope so. Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
one of those things that often you don't when you kind of I'll call it grow up in the middle class world. It's most time whether it's music, whether it's art, it's like yeah, but what are you going to do for a living, right? And I'm always interested talking to someone whose parents were both artists.
Yeah, I just didn't necessarily put two and two together. The main thing was that even though we were very comfortable and everything, I just didn't like we hung out with like other cartoonists and their kids. Like we would go to cartoonist conventions. Like all these people that we knew is like so and so. Oh yeah, he does this comic strip. That was how I categorized people. It's like
Wow.
there's people talk about things they remember from their childhoods that were blasts from the past. I'm like, my blast from the past were my father receiving his proof books from the syndicate that distributed his comic strip every week, so you could read weeks ahead of time what was going to happen in like, oh, here a Canadian institution for better or for worse, or like other comic strips. Calvin and Hobbes was a different different syndicate, but
Right.
like you know
That's so cool.
Oh my God, Peanuts. I knew what was going to happen in Peanuts like 2 weeks ahead. Anyway, it's like, this is a childhood thing nobody else had.
Oh my
Very few.
goodness, that's amazing to me. Like, I'm just like, how many people would like go, you got to do what? Like,
Yeah, I know.
especially
Well,
that,
I didn't get to do anything. I just got to read the proofs,
no,
but yeah,
but still, it's kind of like you're seeing
still,
behind the scenes of what the rest of the world will eventually see at that time in a newspaper or a magazine, right? Which is kind of a very cool thing.
that time
Even
it
though
was
you're,
all newspapers.
and I was going to say that in itself is, when you think of time, like when you bring newspapers back now, and here you're in a world where we're celebrating today the release of Metis, excuse me, Magnetosphere in streaming,
Yeah.
and your childhood would have been very big around newspapers in an example with your father's work, right? How quickly and how much
Uh,
has changed.
I can only speak to that because I have only been directing films, and this includes like short films and stuff. I only did that, like all told, maybe 9.5 years. So there has not been a major change in what happens with indie films of that
Mm,
size necessarily in that time. Um, but with bigger films, sure, there's probably been a sea change in how they're distributed, where they're distributed, so forth. I know that with comics, which I know is not our topic here, but hey, I
it's
know
so
that
cool.
with comics, yeah, they they were, when I was a child up to when I was a teenager, they were all in newspapers, and then at some point, I want to say it was like 20 years ago or more, they started people started getting them online from different sources. Yahoo Comics, I think, was one of the early ones. And then there's like Go Comics, and there was a comics.com, which I don't think exists anymore. And there's one, Arkhamax. And anyway, it's probably other ones in Canada that I live in the US, so I don't know. But yeah, there's like, there was this huge change in how the media was consumed. And um, it used to be that, like, if your cartoon wasn't carried in a bunch of major papers, or if a major paper was carrying you, then they dropped it, you would like lose half your income. It could be devastating.
Yeah,
um Maybe I exaggerate, but like
yeah,
it would be a big deal. Whereas now, I think a lot of these people basically make their income, and they might make a very good income from clicks and advertisers. And yeah, so that's been an enormous change. That's been just in my lifetime. That's been in my relatively recent lifetime.
yeah. No, true enough. So
I'm
this is so
flattering myself
interesting.
by describing teenagehood as really recent, but it wasn't. But still,
This is so interesting to me because I think like now, when I go back, like your dad would have to do like a weekly kind of comic strip probably, or something to that effect. He would have deadlines to work.
daily, every single day, and yes, deadlines.
So he would understand that creative, like those creative, those that juice power that's required to do this in a daily thing. Did it
Hmm.
ever help you, or did you ever feel that you got kind of, he had a sense of understanding what you were doing, whether it be working in the, as an actress in the puppet world, or even in your film world, that because you're still having to be creative even as a writer, like it's, and he would have
Yeah,
that that pressure of, well, I got to come up with another idea for this day or whatever it would be. Did Was
yeah.
he, or even your mom as a musician, were they able to have some insight into what that is to help you, do you think?
I think I don't think there was ever, I could be wrong, but I don't think there was ever any like formal conversation about
Mm,
it. What I think there was a sort of osmotic, like I said, I didn't figure out until like relatively embarrassingly late that people had other jobs, and that most people like
yes.
would never have that particular job, and would encourage their kids to do otherwise, so forth and so on. um, Let me see. I'm trying to think. Did we ever really? I think I just sort of, you know, with my dad, especially because he has to have 7 ideas per week.
Mm,
I think that Well, especially when I was little, I would like want to draw and write my own comic strips. And so,
Okay.
I think he would say something like, okay, well, you have to have 6 weeks worth of these in order to submit them for publication, submit them to, a
Oh,
syndicate for
wow.
distribution. And it was very mafia, the syndicate, but that's what they call it. And so I would be like, oh, okay. So I would just try to come up with, what's that, 42 ideas at once and draw them all. And I could draw neither then or now, but that didn't stop me. And yeah, I mean, I think having that's why I talk about osmosis, is that like all the time I think having either my mom singing and playing piano and also playing lute. She plays the lute, of all things.
Okay.
Not that many lutenists, but anyway, she does that, and my dad does what he does. And I think having that around me,
Yes.
basically all my life, yeah, certainly factored into, I had that sort of, especially for the early years that I was doing film, and especially for the really early years that I was doing acting, I sort of had that athlete mentality
Yes.
of, you just keep pushing no matter what.
Well, it's
And,
wait,
it would be more rare for me not to have ideas.
well, I like the word you use, osmosis, because I've been talking to a number of people in the athletic world as well, and they were saying that even in today's world, where like you're in a junior position trying to get up into that pro line, if your
Mhm.
parents are coming from an athletic background, you will have the
Mhm.
advantage over a person who's coming in, maybe even equal talents or skills. You'll have the advantage because you
Mhm.
know the psychological part of it. And so when you say osmosis, you probably got that and not even aware that you're getting it because you're raised in that environment.
That's what
That's cool.
yeah, I almost said in French, "Voilà," because that's what we would say in French, meaning "yeah." That's exactly that's exactly I kind of go back and forth between the two languages in my day jobs. But it that's exactly it. You never like think about it. As a matter of fact, if you do start thinking about it, you're probably in a heck of a lot of trouble.
Messes you up.
It messes you up. Like, this is why I have a process for writing now that I almost don't want to say this, but it's fine. It's not going to hurt anything. Which is, the process is basically I write down whatever comes into my mind, and um like just it's almost gibberish. My handwriting is certainly gibberish, and the ideas behind it are only 1% less gibberish. And I write like a thing with I haven't tried this with like longer form stuff, but for the essays, just beginning, middle, and end, and it's all gibberish. And but the point is, it's all there. Like, it's like, build the house first. You can paint it later. You can decorate it later. You do all the things that make it seem nice later. But when I'm able to do that, I'm very lucky, because thinking about it, forget how I got to this topic, but thinking about it is ruin.
Yes.
Like, it ruins everything.
When you said this, Nicola, it's a couple things came because I remember hearing, I think it was Maya Angelou, and I've heard actually Neil Young say this, that when it comes, if you don't write it down, like you're saying gibberish or whatever, it doesn't come back.
Yeah.
Like it's a gift that floats in, and if you don't immediately write it down, you're thinking, well, I'll think of it. It doesn't come back. And so that's when I love that
Yeah.
the idea of that, the process that you're saying, because I mean, as a writer as well, you find out that if I don't write it down, I can't come up with that same, and it often will sound beautiful the way you wrote it, right? You still have to edit it, of course,
Because yeah,
but
yeah,
how do you
but like
describe it?
later.
How did you describe? You said about the house. I love that metaphor. What you
Yeah,
said.
yeah. Build the house first. You can paint it later. You can decorate it later. You
It's a
can put
great
put
way
finishings
of.
on it.
That's very cool. And I guess when you coming back to your work in film, I guess in a way it's similar to that too, right? Did like when you were going and shooting Magnetosphere, did you while you were doing it come up with other things that you decided I'd like to see it this way instead? Did you have things like that as well?
Yeah, that happened. For sure that happened.
Are you
Um,
were you
I
were you restricted sometimes because of like I got to get the day in, or I've got to like were there other
yeah, for sure.
yeah, so you'd have to balance that part of
All the time.
oh my goodness, man. That's a lot of energy too.
All the time. But that saps you. And I am still dealing with that. But yeah, I think just the fallout of having been that tired. Um, but yeah, there when you have the luxury of you still got 15 minutes and you're always asking your AD, your assistant director, you're always asking somebody, how many minutes do we have left? Because you sure as hell are not keeping time. That's somebody else's job. And when you are lucky enough to have some sort of golden amount of luxury time, such as 15 minutes, it's almost unthinkable.
Yeah, I'll bet it is.
You end up, it's never 15 minutes. It's like 5 minutes. Oh my God, a gift. What am I going to do with this? I'm rich. Then you'll say, hey, can we, and because we had not just Colin Mochrie, but several people who are really, really good at making stuff up,
Oh my goodness, yes.
um,
That was
say, um, there's an additional material by credit somewhere in the rolling credits of the film that's both Colin and Pat McKenna, because both of them, and by the way, people ask, did they just improvise? No, they asked first, is it okay to, or I would ask them to. These are, people who've been doing what they've been doing for 40 years. They're not just gonna,
they're pros.
who would do that? Except well, an amateur would maybe do that, and they're not funny. I don't mean to say that. Sometimes they're funny. Anyway, point being, they are never they're rarely even going to offer to improvise. That was more like me saying, hey, we have 5 minutes, can we try a version where you add a line at the end? And they would have an idea, and then we would kind of shape it together, and hopefully it turned into something funny. I say hopefully.
Because it's interesting you say that because I mean we used to hear a lot of it with Robin Williams. That was like where it became the big quote. He would just go and do his own thing, whether he did or not. You don't really know unless you were on set. But I was always
Yeah,
amazed with Colin Mochrie on Whose Life Is It Anyway, or Whose Line Is It Anyway, and their ability to
yeah,
create in an instant and be like stomach barrel gut wrenching funny. Like it was just unbelievable to me. So I wondered whether
I
that was
know.
like that on the set, but I've also heard most are very
No,
professional. So
but
they come in and they know what they have to say. Wow, that's very
they
cool.
come in, they know what they have to say. Sometimes they do not necessarily remember what they have to say, but that is true of all of us, and that is not a comment on anybody in particular.
Interesting,
Everybody
man.
did their best. I sometimes didn't remember what they had to say, and I had the script in front of me, so really, the blame is on me if that happened.
Did you, I know we have a limited time here, but one other question, did you ever
I'm
have
so sorry.
it's okay. Did you ever have a moment though when you were like, did you feel like you were in the zone? Like this is like while you were
Yes,
filming. You did, eh?
I'm so glad that you asked that, because this is the most important feeling that any director or performer can ever feel. Where I talked earlier about having blinders on in order to get, maybe in order to get through things I kind of forget, but here's the thing. You have to be in the zone to do your best work. You do your best work when you're feeling playful and creative. And under a situation as stressful as this, which in many ways I would not wish on anybody,
Oh yeah.
um, it's a whole other story, but it's enormously stressful. And I think things like this can be made less stressful, but I'm getting off track. The the best thing that you can do, the best skill that you can have is be able to, and I was able to do it, just like pop myself into a mental zone where I was like just doing it stupid. And that is the best thing that can happen. And I'm going to go back to, it's interesting that I would do this twice because I am completely unathletic, but I'm going to go back to sports for a second.
Okay. Okay.
So, uh, yeah, I'll wrap it up with a sports thing. So in figure skating, which is pretty much the only sport I have ever followed or ever been interested
Okay.
in.
Wow.
That's not true. That's not true, but close to it. Um,
Hence the beginning
Scott
of Goodbye,
Hamilton.
Petrushka.
Well, Your Goodbye Petrushka is about. I will do a couple minutes on this if I can.
Okay, I'm
Please remind
interrupting
me.
you.
I forget
Sorry, keep
everything.
going.
No, it's okay. Scott Hamilton, worked as a commentator, maybe still does, for many years of figure skating. And the thing he said that resonated so much with me back when I was performing, and then later on when I was directing, is sometimes you have to skate stupid. Like, do not think of what he meant in context was do not think about what you have to do. Do not think about anything that is going on outside of
Wow,
you
that's
being the
cool.
skater on the ice and being within yourself and in the zone. Just skate stupid. And I really took that to heart, and I'm sure both my fans and detractors would agree that I direct stupid.
Wow,
So
that's cool
it is
though.
important.
And that's how it happened. Neat.
Yeah.
So, wait,
Goodbye Petrushka, really quick, is available on.
yes.
Mhm.
No, keep going.
No, go
Keep
ahead.
going. No, I was just gonna. I'm trying
It's
to
all
watch.
right. I got 3 more minutes. We're good. Goodbye Petrushka is my first feature film. It was done on just about no money. I'm very proud considering that of how well it turned out, because the production value for micro teeny feature is really good.
Oh yes, it
It
is.
was well shot. It was well acted. It was. Thank you. So the thing with Goodbye Petrushka is it does have to do with figure skating, but it has to do with a guy who is a skater who is at the end of his career and sort of looking down a road that's entirely vacant and being like, oh my God, what do I do next?
Yeah.
And this sort of manic pixie dream girl puppeteer shows up. People think it's me. It is not. The story is not mine.
Yes.
But their paths cross, and they intersect at a time that both of them need to intersect. And she thinks she's showing him the way for him, but she's really showing her the way for her. And there's a lot about it that I still really like.
It's a beautiful film. The way, like as you described it. Um, what I was gonna add to is it's another one that's out there being streamed now too that you can see on various stream platforms, right? So
And this one is free to stream on Tubi, which is AVOD, and Amazon Prime, and Fandango at Home, and Google Play, and I think that's it. It's a lot fewer platforms, just because it's a it's a no-name movie. Very stupid and unfair the way this is dealt with, but hey, not my system. And on Tubi, and on YouTube Movies, through our distributor, you can see that one for free. YouTube Movies, Tubi, Prime, Fandango at Home, and Google Play. I think that's it.
so that is, oh my goodness, man. After you see Magnetosphere, maybe you'll come back and see Goodbye Petrushka. Hopefully you will. So with
I
this,
recommend it in that order.
yes. So the big news is as Nicola started with today, her film Magnetosphere is coming out July 22nd across all streaming forms in North America. And I was going to say,
Yes.
if the hints that you show in, I'll say Goodbye Petrushka, of how you could tell a story are anything like what's in Magnetosphere, you don't want to miss Magnetosphere. Like to me, it's just it's a beautiful story, and you've done a great job promoting it. So
I thought you were going to say if it's anything like.
you
I
saw
thought you were going to
what?
say if it's anything like Petrushka, you don't want to see Magnetosphere.
No,
Anyway,
no.
go on.
I was kind of like, we talked the last time. I didn't know about the figure skating so much, but I knew about the puppets and kind of the start of it. I don't want to give it away
Yeah.
though, because it's a really interesting story to me that you do in a relatively short space of time, which is a talent in itself. But
Yeah.
with that,
Thank
you don't have to get out and see Nicola Rose's Magnetosphere, because it's coming to your house in a streaming platform. Again, mark
Come
it
to your
the
house.
date on
Yeah.
July 22nd. It's coming. I can't thank you enough for
July
joining us
22nd.
today, Nicola. I hope we can
Thank
do
you.
this
And I'm sorry
again.
to run off quickly.
It's not a problem at all.
Hope
I
so.
I think hopefully we don't make you late today. And I thank you for tuning in,
Oh,
and
you're
hopefully you'll tune again. And don't forget to subscribe to Better Than Not to see more people like Nicola Rose and their story. With that, goodbye, Nicola. Bye-bye.
Are we on? Good. Welcome to the Better Than None podcast. Sometimes we get it right, sometimes we don't. But when we at least do something, we know it's almost always better than not.